You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
We got a call right off the bat. All right.
Jason on the line. Good morning, Jason. How are you, brother?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
Yes, I have just a question. When it comes to unions, a lot of them are just craft unions, and I see that as a problem because if you divide the unions up into different crafts instead of letting them work as like one big industrial union, it seems like you're dividing up your power. Why is that?
There's a long history and trade, what you're calling craft unions, what I call trade unions, and then industrial unions. It goes back to the late 1800s, early 1900s with the AFL and the CIO and Gompers. And I won't go into a whole bunch of labor history, but early on in the labor movement, the trade unions or craft unions was put in place mainly for bargaining rights, but also a lot to protect those workers in those trades. They wanted, and the ugly part of it is in a lot of cases early in the 1900s, they didn't include a lot of the immigrants. They didn't include a lot of any of the minorities. It was pretty much just white men. They didn't include females. But it was a way to protect their trade.
They wanted to kind of
out of that.
Yeah, they wanted to kind of in the beginning they wanted to kind of keep some of these trades skilled. They wanted it to be considered skilled. And so if you let in a sense, even some of these unions in their beginning, they didn't even so much work as advocates of the working class. They worked as kind of gatekeepers in their trades, and so obviously these unions, even the ones that go by the same names as those that started that way, they don't operate that way anymore.
But one thing to keep in mind is, in the push towards syndicalism, or especially in my case, what I'm always advocating for is worker empowerment and workers owning the means of their production. Those trade unions still can play a tremendous role in taking over a lot of that hierarchical company-owned type mentality. They still own. They do a lot. They go a long ways in owning what they produce. So, and also to your point, as far as you think it's divided, and in a way it kind of is divided, but that's where the AFL-CIO comes in and puts a broader umbrella, with like IBEW 558 or like the iron workers that support us monthly. They're coming out and helping us, as far as supporting the show, but on a broader labor movement aspect, they're supporting the machinists. They're supporting AFGE. We're having a call with IATSE and one of the local politicians, the city councilman, coming up, and they'll be involved in that. So
yeah, you can kind of ameliorate some of the issues that you would have by, like you said, dividing workers into their trades or whatever, instead of organizing industrially. You can kind of ameliorate some of those concerns by, being good participants in the labor movement locally. And you don't even have to be a member. You don't even have to be affiliated with the AFL-CIO to do a good job of that. Yeah. David, you mentioned yesterday or Thursday it was that the Teamsters Local 402 is who represents UPS drivers here in North Alabama, and they refused to cross your picket line in 2018 when the machinists went on strike at ULA. And so, see, that they're not even in the same industry, but they are,
they're supporters of the
there's good solidarity there. And so, it doesn't even necessarily, I think organizing industrially has more advantages than organizing by trade. But even organizing by trade, it doesn't necessarily hurt you that bad as long as you've got like good folks there, good people that are that have that ethic of solidarity.
And you see, like for example, IBEW even though they're considered a craft or trade union, they go out and organize industrial as well. There's several people on the Arsenal that are contracted or that are represented by IBEW that are not necessarily electricians. I know one of the groups is a female group of, I think, some clerical or office type workers. So, have you got any other questions, Jason, or was?
Yes. Sure. I am a member of the National Letter Carriers Association.
Yeah.
And I called in last week about the worker co-ops because I've been thinking more about worker ownership, and the crazy idea that I've had just working at the post office is I see our unions are divided up between the American Postal Workers Union, the National Association of Letter Carriers, the National Postal Mail Handlers.
There's
and I think that is
carriers.
Like my crazy idea would be, sorry?
There's rural carriers as well. There's
rural carriers as well. That I would like to see all those unions combined into one, and then, when they talk about selling the post office, sell it to the union.
Yeah.
Is that even something possible?
Yeah. Well, I mean, theoretically, I guess that would be something. But there even some of these unions, even as divided as the postal worker unions are, they're still conglomerations of, like the APWU, I think is a formation of 2 or 3 unions that had existed prior. Yeah. And I think the same thing goes with the letter carriers as well. So, that is the trend, is the merger of existing unions into bigger unions. I think it would be good.
It streamlines a lot of the administration processes and cuts costs for everybody across the board. Yep. The machinists took in NEFI, the National Federation of Federal Employees, a few years ago to help them out. But your point, to your point about purchasing, the means of production, I think that's brilliant, and I think that's something that all workers need to be considering moving forward. Just last week, Jacob and I was talking about a cooperative restaurant, starting a cooperative restaurant in the area to where all the workers are share ownership, and I think that's something everybody needs to be considering. It's the only way we're ever going to make any gains, because I recognize, as far as union workers go, you probably make pretty good money as a letter carrier, but you're very limited in what say you have on the job, as we are as well. To an extent. That you're simply one worker and not a co-owner of that. So I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think we both we're both very much in favor. And if you didn't hear it on the show, we did answer that show. It got later in the show that we answered it, but we did answer that. And if you didn't catch that, you can go back and see that on the YouTube. But I think that worker ownership is very good. I think it's very important, and to those could be some conversations that you start having in your union, potentially. And as we let you go, make sure that your folks in the letter carriers union, make sure they know that the next labor council meeting is going to be on the 7th. We've been talking to your president and your political coordinator, and they have been wanting to. They've been looking towards affiliation with the labor council locally, so make sure you push them on that.
Oh, that's great.
All right, Jason, thanks for the call. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right.